The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask you to bestow a generous portion of your Spirit upon these elected representatives of the people of Minnesota. Give them the strength and courage to do what needs to be done and the wisdom to discern what is best for all the people they represent in the weeks that remain to them in this legislative session. We make this prayer in your powerful and holy name. Amen.
Amen. The chaplain for today is Deacon Nathan E. Allen from the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, when the chief clerk calls the roll today to establish a quorum, please state your name, your location, and that you are present. Members using the remote voting application should also press the green yes button when their name is called. The clerk will take the roll.
Acom, St. Paul, present. Agbadje,
Minneapolis, present.
Agbadje, Minneapolis, present. Ackland,
St. Paul, present.
Ackland, St. Paul, present. Albright, St. Paul, present. Anderson, St. Paul, present. Backer,
Browns Valley, present.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bonner,
Maple Grove, present.
Bonner, Maple Grove, present. Barr,
East Bethel, present.
Barr, East Bethel, present. Baker, St. Paul, present. Becker, Finn,
Finn, St. Paul, present.
Becker, Finn, St. Paul, present. Bennett,
Albert Lee, present.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present. Berg,
Burnsville, present.
Burnsville, present. Bernardi,
New Brighton, present.
New Brighton, present. Bierman,
Apple Valley, present.
Apple Valley, present. Bliss,
Beltrami County, present.
Beltrami County, present. Bow,
Carver County, present.
Carver County, present. Bolden,
Rochester, present.
Rochester, present. Burkle,
Skagit Township, present.
Skagit Township, present. Carlson,
Present.
St. Paul, present. Christensen,
Stillwater, present.
Stillwater, present. Daniels,
Faribault, present.
Faribault, present. Doubt, St. Paul, present. David, St. Paul, present. Davney,
Minneapolis, present.
Minneapolis, present. Damath, St. Paul, present. Detmer,
Forest Lake, present.
Forest Lake, present. Drazkowski,
Winona, present.
Winona, present. Eklund,
St. Paul, present.
St. Paul, present. Edelson, St. Paul, present. Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson,
St. Paul, present.
St. Paul, present. Feist,
New Brighton, present.
New Brighton, present. Fisher,
Maplewood, present.
Maplewood, present. Frankie, Franzen,
St. Paul, present.
St. Paul, present. Frazier, St. Paul, present. Frederick,
Mankato, present.
present. Freiburg,
Golden Valley, present.
Golden Valley, present. Garofalo,
Dakota County, present.
Dakota County, present. Gomez,
Minneapolis, present.
Minneapolis, present. Green,
St. Paul, present.
St. Paul, present. Greenman, St. Paul, present. Grossel,
St. Paul, present.
St. Paul, present. Grunhagen, St. Paul, present. Haley, Hamilton.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present. Hanson R. Hanson R. Hanson J.
Hanson J. Burnsville, present.
Hanson J. Burnsville, present. Hassan.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present. Hausman.
Hausman, St. Paul, present.
Hausman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich Anoka, present.
Heinrich Anoka, present. Heinzman.
Heinzman, Crow County, present.
Heinzman, Crow Wing County, present. Her, St. Paul, present. Hertas.
Hertas Greenfield, present.
Hertas, Greenfield, present. Hollins.
Holland, St. Paul, present.
Hollins, St. Paul, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard. Howard, St. Paul, present. Hewitt. Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Igo. Igo, St. Paul, present. Johnson.
Johnson, St. Paul, present.
Johnson, St. Paul, present. Jordan.
Jordan, Minneapolis, present.
Jordan, Minneapolis, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present. Keeler.
Keeler, St. Paul, present.
Keeler, St. Paul, present. Keel. Keel. Cleavorn.
Cleveland, Plymouth, present.
Cleavorn, Plymouth, present. Kegel.
Pickle, Spring Lake Park, present.
Kegel, Spring Lake Park, present. Katiza, Watun.
Tizo, Tune, Eden Prairie, present.
Katiza, Watun, Eden Prairie, present. Kosnick.
Hi, Dina. This is Connie Bernardi calling.
Kosnick.
Cosmic Lakeville, present.
Kosnick, Lakeville, present. Creshaw.
Grisha, Little Falls, present.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present. Lee.
Lee, St. Paul, present.
Lee, St. Paul, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lilly.
Lily, St. Paul, present.
Lilly, St. Paul, present. Lippert. Lippert, St. Paul, present. Listlegard. Listlegard, St. Paul, present. Long. Long, St. Paul, present. Lucero.
Lucero, Dayton, here.
Lucero, Dayton, present. Lewick. Lewick, St. Paul, present. Mariani. Mariani. Marquardt.
Marquardt, St. Paul, present.
Marquardt, St. Paul, present. Mason.
Mason, Egan, present.
Mason, Egan, present. McDonald.
McDonald, Delano, present.
McDonald, Delano, present. Mecklin.
Mecklen, Sherburne County, present.
Mecklin, Sherburne County, present. Miller. Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller.
Moeller, Shoreview, present.
Moeller, Shoreview, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present. Mortensen.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present. Mueller. Mueller, St. Paul, present. Munson.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash. Nash, St. Paul, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., Brooklyn Park, present.
Nelson M. Brooklyn Park, present. Nelson N. Nelson N. St. Paul, present. New Brindley. New Brindley, St. Paul, present. Noor.
Norm, Minneapolis, present.
Noor, Minneapolis, present. Novotny.
Novotny, St. Paul, present.
Novotny, St. Paul, present. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll, Sartell, present.
O'Driscoll, Sartell, present. Olson B. Olson B, St. Paul, present. Olson L. Olson L, St. Paul, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, St. Paul, present.
O'Neill, St. Paul, present. Pulowski.
Pulaski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Petersburg. Petersburg. Farr.
Farr, St. Paul, present.
Farr, St. Paul, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poston.
Poston, Lakeshore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present. Quam.
Quam, Byron, present.
Quam, Byron, present. Raleigh. Raleigh, St. Paul, present. Rasmussen. Rasmussen, St. Paul, present. Ryer.
Ryer, Egan, present.
Ryer, Egan, present. Richardson.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Sandell.
Sandell, Woodbury, present.
Sandell, Woodbury, present. Sandsted.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, Laverne, present.
Schumacher, Laverne, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott.
Scott, Andover, present.
Scott, Andover, present. Stephenson. Stephenson, St. Paul, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski. Swazinski, St. Paul, present. Tice. Tice, St. Paul, present. Thompson. Thompson. Torkelson.
Torkelson, St. Paul, present.
Torkelson, St. Paul, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present. Vang.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present. West.
West Blaine, present.
West Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, St. Paul, present. Zhang Jie.
John J. St. Paul, present.
Zhang Jie, St. Paul, present. Zhang T.
Zhang T. Maplewood, present.
Zhang T. Maplewood, present. Joachim.
Joachim Hopkins, present.
Joachim Hopkins, present. Speaker Hartman.
Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present.
Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present. Frankie. Frankie, St. Paul, present. Haley. Haley, St. Paul, present. Hanson R.
Hanson R., St. Paul, present.
Hanson R. St. Paul, present. Keel. Keel, St. Paul, present. Mariani. Mariani. Petersburg. Petersburg. Thompson. Thompson.
The clerk will close the roll. Quorum is present. Members, we're going to pause for just a second here to correct the
Okay.
audio. Bear with us for just a second, please. Representative Winkler.
Mr. Speaker, members, we are having a little bit of an audio difficulty and will take about 15 or 20 minutes to resolve. We are not going to recess. We are going to establish the custom of, and usage of chilling while we wait for the system to get rebooted.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Representative Pinto, do you hear me?
Members, can we please just be quiet for a moment while we test the sound system? Thank you. The clerk will read the journal for the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 92nd Session, 2021, 43rd day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Tuesday, April 20th, 2021.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail and substitutions will be made. Reports on standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files. That's a big one. Thank you.
Second reading, House File number 2128.
Second reading. Second reading of Senate files. Smaller one.
Second reading, Senate File number 1846.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The chief clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading. Oops.
Introduction of first reading of House Files 2554 through 2562.
First reading of House Files 2554 through 2562. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments the concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File number 1077, an act relating to housing. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Houseman moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File number 1077, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses.
To the author of the motion, Representative Houseman.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate inserted their language with a $0 budget target onto the housing omnibus bill, so we will have to go to conference.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File number 1079, an act relating to state government, appropriating money for outdoor heritage, clean water parks, etc. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Lilly moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File number 1079, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses.
To the author of the motion, Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is my motion. The Senate has passed a different bill, and we're looking forward to working out the differences, and that is my motion. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails.
Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments to the following Senate file. Senate File number 975, an act relating to higher education. The Senate has respectfully requested that a conference committee be appointed therein. The Senate has appointed as such committee Senators Tomassoni, Rarick, Goggin, Jasinski, and Clausen. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Bernardi moves that the House accede to the request of the Senate and that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House to meet with a like committee appointed by the Senate on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
To the author of the motion, Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise that we move to a conference committee because we do not have.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce that the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments to the following Senate file. Senate file number 1098, an act relating to economic development, labor and industry. The Senate has respectfully requested that a conference committee be appointed thereon. The Senate has appointed as such committee Senators Pratt, Rarig, Housley, Draheim, and Eakin. Message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Nor moves that the House accede to the request of the Senate and that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House to meet with a like committee appointed by the Senate on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses on Senate file number 1098.
To the author of the motion, Representative Noor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is my motion. We are ready to go to the conference. The Senate refused to concur the House amendments to the Senate file 1098. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those in favor of the Noor motion say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate file numbers 193, 443, and 1807. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
First readings of Senate files.
First reading of Senate file number 193, an act relating to health occupations. Morrison moved that Senate file number 193 and House file number 269, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
First reading, Senate file number 443, an act relating to public safety. Edelson moves that Senate file number 443 and House file number 331, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
First reading, Senate file number 1807, an act relating to real property. Hollins moves that Senate file number 1807 and House file number 2245, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Motions and resolutions. There's a motion at the desk.
Stephenson moves that Senate file number 972 be taken from the table.
Representative Stephenson, to your motion.
Mr. Speaker, that's my motion. This is the Commerce, Climate, and Energy Omnibus that we took up yesterday. I'd like us to take off the table today.
All those in favor of removing the bill, taking the bill off the table, say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion prevails. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate file number 972, an act relating to commerce and energy, the third engrossment.
Representative Stephenson, would you like to put the House language before us to present your bill?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I would like the House language added. I believe there's a DE amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Stevenson moves to amend Senate file number 972, the third engrossment, as follows. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert the following language as House file number 1031, the second engrossment. The amendment is coded DEA 1031.
Any discussion to the DEA 1031 amendment? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative Stephenson, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I am pleased to bring before the House today the Commerce, Climate, and Energy Omnibus Bill, which, in addition to funding the Department of Commerce, contains a number of very important provisions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, the climate crisis, consumer protection, and equity. I'll let Chair Long describe the climate portions of the bill in detail and only comment that I think it's a visionary bill. And as a member of the Climate and Energy Committee myself and as the author of several energy provisions in the bill, I'm very excited for that portion of the bill. The Commerce Committee's focus this year was on helping our state make it through the COVID-19 pandemic and ensuring that we return to prosperity as quickly as possible when it concludes. The bill includes a number of provisions critical to that goal. The first bill we heard in Commerce was Representative Katiza-Watoon's bill to stop delivery services from taking advantage of the enormous leverage that they have over our bars and restaurants during the pandemic. We also included Representative Wozlowick's bill to ensure that COVID-19 stimulus payments aren't garnished. It's important that those payments go to their intended purpose, stimulating our economy and helping struggling Minnesotans make it through the economic crisis caused by the pandemic. Likewise, the bill includes Representative Dabney's bill to crack down on the abusive practices of the payday lending industry. We also included the price gouging legislation that passed this House on a bipartisan basis last month. The need for this legislation was demonstrated in vivid detail in the early days of the pandemic here in Minnesota and more recently in Texas. In addition to COVID-19 policy, the bill also includes several very important consumer protection provisions. You know, as a member of the legislature, you have a lot of conversations, you hear a lot of stories. But among the most memorable conversations, whether it happens when you're out door knocking or talking with a constituent in your office, are with people who are struggling with the high cost of prescription drugs. I think all members have had those conversations, and they break your heart. No one should have to choose between paying for the medication that they need to live and paying for the mortgage. No one should choose between skipping a pill or skipping a meal. But people in Minnesota make those decisions every day. And that's why I'm so pleased that this bill includes Representative Morrison's proposal to create a prescription drug affordability board. Just as how the Public Utilities Commission protects Minnesota consumers from the huge monopoly power of our electric utilities, the Prescription Drug Affordability Board would protect consumers from the monopolistic power of large pharmaceutical companies. The bill also includes a proposal for a student borrower bill of rights. Members, the student debt crisis is real and growing. Student loan debt is now the second largest kind of debt in the United States after only mortgage debt. It's ahead of credit card debt. And this provision, which has bipartisan support, would curb the worst abuses of the student loan industry. We also address the wave of catalytic converter thefts that are sweeping the state. These thefts are a pernicious problem. It only takes a thief a few minutes and a sawzall to cause thousands of dollars of damage. And we take a common sense approach to the problem. Thieves are stealing catalytic converters because they can sell them for a lot of money. We're going to make it a lot harder to sell them and also give car owners tools to protect themselves. These measures have bipartisan support thanks to the great work of Representatives Richardson and Representative Davids, among others. A great bill only comes together because of a great team, and the Commerce Committee had a phenomenal team. I want to thank all of the members of the committee, whether they are in the majority or the minority, and in particular, my phenomenal Vice Chair, Katiza-Watoon, Representative Katiza-Watoon, and Republican lead O'Driscoll, with whom I was able to work, I think, very well throughout the session, and I really appreciate that constructive relationship, even though we didn't always agree. But even more, I want to thank our amazing staff, Simon Brown, Eric Anderson, Chelsea Olson, Lori Pompu, Bob Eliff, Mary Mullen, Randy Chun, Solveig Beckel. I feel so incredibly lucky to be working with all of you, and of course, the quarterback of our team, the incomparable Addie Miller. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, Madam Speaker, or Mr. Speaker, pardon me, I'm looking forward to hearing Chair Long describe the climate portions of the bill.
The representative from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I want to begin by echoing Chair Stephenson's thanks for our staff for their incredible work on putting this committee bill together and for their work over this session, and also our committee members for their real team effort on this session and on this bill. Members, this bill is about ensuring Minnesota is leading the transition to clean energy. Here is an amazing fact. Nearly half of all wind turbines installed across the United States in the last 10 years were installed by Minnesota companies. And that wasn't an accident. That was because prior legislators made the right call in setting the direction of our state towards clean energy. We have a lot to be proud of our state. Over 80% of energy customers in Minnesota have a utility that has committed to rapid decarbonization. We have the best community solar program in the country thanks to the leadership of Speaker Hortman. Corporate leaders like 3M and Ecolab have pledged to meet their needs with 100% clean energy. Companies like Cleveland Cliffs have pledged greenhouse gas reductions of 25% by 2030. And last year, for the first time, renewable energy became the single biggest source of Minnesota's electricity at nearly 1/3 of total generation. But it is not enough to coast on our past success. Other states are passing us by in ambition, and we can't miss out on the opportunities that we know are coming. This bill sets out the vision we need to reclaim our clean energy leadership as a state. It does so affordably and reliably. Wind is the cheapest energy you can buy, and solar will be the cheapest in 5 years, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This bill sets us on a path to eliminate polluting energy with a 100% clean energy standard. Right now, 1 in 3 Americans live in a state or city committed to 100% clean energy, unlocking new economic opportunities for the residents. We don't want Minnesota to fall behind. We know that clean energy means jobs. In fact, Minnesota created 60,000 clean energy jobs over the last 15 years, and clean energy jobs are growing 2.5 times the rate of the rest of the economy. We must continue to ensure that these jobs come to our state and that these jobs are good jobs. Our bill includes Representative Stephenson's Clean Energy First bill to strengthen our preference for renewable energy with provisions to support local hiring and good wages. It includes Representative Lislegard's visionary Buy Clean and Buy Fair standards to reward companies making products protective of environment and of workers. And it includes Representative Christensen's bill to support a just transition for workers and communities by creating an Energy Transition Legacy Office. We know the energy transition must also be equitable. Air pollution from burning fossil fuels cuts life expectancy by about 2 years per person in the United States. And in Minnesota, there are an estimated 4,000 early deaths every year from air pollution, disproportionately the poor and people of color who suffer higher rates of asthma and other respiratory diseases as a result. We have to focus our efforts on the communities most impacted, and this bill does so. We require environmental justice to be considered for new facility siting, and we fund a pilot introduced by Representative Fu Lee for North Minneapolis Job Training Center. We also take energy reduction seriously in the building sector, including efforts to improve efficiency for existing and new commercial buildings. And we focus on the transportation sector by supporting electric vehicles, which we know with the announcements from GM and other automakers is our future. We build our electric vehicle infrastructure and reduce costs for consumers to help promote EV ownership. And we include Representative Lippard's Future Fuels Act to move us towards cleaner fuels. We fund solar in schools from Representative Acom, saving money on school energy bills, the second largest cost for many school districts. And we help support what would become the second largest solar manufacturer in the U.S. on the Iron Range. We know clean energy is necessary to confront climate change. This is not a someday problem. Last week, measurements showed that carbon levels in the atmosphere are the highest now since they were 3.6 million years ago. Just to put that in context, that's likely when our ancestors first started to learn how to walk upright. Sea levels were about 78 feet higher than they are today. Minnesota has seen 23 separate billion-dollar weather events since 2000. And it's no accident then that Minnesota's homeowners insurance premiums have tripled in the last 15 years. Climate change is impacting our health, our farms, our infrastructure, and our way of life right now. Representative Acom's Next Generation Climate Act updates our state greenhouse gas reduction goals to meet current science. And this could not be better time to be taking up this bill today, members. President Biden literally in the next few minutes is going to be announcing the U.S. Commitment to the Paris Climate Accords to cut targets for the U.S. for our emissions in half by 2030. We know the direction that our economy is moving. We know the direction it needs to move. In sum, this bill recognizes the challenge we have: an energy economy in transition, disproportionate health impacts for environmental justice communities, and the threat of climate change. But it also embraces our opportunities: good-paying jobs, affordable energy, new industries. It says it's time for Minnesota to once again lead our nation's clean energy transition. I look forward to the discussion today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Stephenson moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A46.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Stephenson, who will explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment corrects an error we made in the bill. Money that was intended to cancel back to the general fund was canceled instead to the Healthcare Access Fund. So I'd ask members to vote green.
Further discussion to the A46 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The amendment, the motion is approved and the amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swazinski moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A40.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Swazinski. Will you please explain the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The A40 amendment is pretty straightforward, and we've heard a lot in committee over and over that we need to do the right thing. And Minnesota obviously has been a leader in many areas when it comes to renewable energy, energy efficiency, and others. While we're going one direction, China is going in another. And, our economic interests and our economic opportunity here in Minnesota is much different than other parts of the world. And we need to leverage what Minnesota can do over China. And being at a competitive advantage, giving opportunity here in Minnesota, the A40 amendment will tie the Chinese economy to ours so that Minnesota can leverage what the Chinese people do. So that they will come along with us so that we can be at a competitive advantage with them and push them along to do what we do. I ask for your support and ask for a roll call.
Further discussion to the A40 amendment. The representative from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask members to oppose this.
I'm sorry. There's a lot going on up here. A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask members to oppose this amendment. We do not generally tie our state policy decisions as a legislature to a foreign government, and I don't think now is the time to start. This would literally make decisions in the state of Minnesota based on what China does, and I think that we should be taking advantage of clean energy opportunities and jobs right here and not waiting for China. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for a no vote.
The representative from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I actually had my hand up for the A40 amendment, and I just point of parliamentary inquiry, I guess, for you is, once again, how are members who do have their hands up going to be able to be recognized by the Speaker to be in a timely fashion? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
My apologies, Representative O'Driscoll. Further discussion to the A40 amendment. To the author of the amendment, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I think when we look at what's been going on, the world is going in one direction. Globally, the world has cut coal production by 17 gigawatts. The Chinese continent itself has added over 30 gigawatts of coal-fired energy. We heard comments in committee from young people who are dealing with depression, angst, visiting psychotherapists over the fear-mongering over global warming. And yet we're told we just need to do the right thing. And when we asked over and over what amount of difference we will make here in Minnesota by potentially putting us at a disadvantage globally, this amendment, I think, speaks to the fact of what role we can potentially play. And by pushing China with this amendment to potentially go along with us, I think it sends a good, strong message of our influence on not only economic policy, but also environmental policy here in the state and in the country. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. For those members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of all those members who have not voted yet?
Anderson. Anderson, aye. Backer. Backer. Bonner.
No.
Bonner, no. Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Bow.
Bow, aye.
Bow, aye. Carlson.
Carlson, no.
Carlson, no. Haley. Haley, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Keel. Keel. Keel, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Grisha, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Tice. Tice, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie. Speaker Hartman.
No.
Speaker Hartman, no.
Okay. The clerk will close the roll.
Backer votes aye.
Backer votes aye.
There being 62 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Franzen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A48.
Thank you, members.
1 second.
Thank you.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Franzen, who will explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The A48 is a study of the human rights impact of enacting this bill. I won't belabor the point. I'll save a lot of my talking for third reading, but simple Google searches will show you that there are some major human rights violations taking place in other countries. so that the United States and Minnesota can achieve its green energy goals. So I would respectfully ask for a yes vote.
Further discussion to the A48 amendment. Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge members to support the amendment.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Franzen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A13.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Franzen, who will introduce the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The A13 amendment says that a public utility may only purchase energy generated by the solar garden if the owner of the community solar garden has certified to the utility that no child labor or slave labor was used to extract the minerals that compose the community's garden's solar panels. I will save, once again, my comments for a third reading, but I hope that as a body, we can agree that we should not be utilizing children and slave labor so that this state and this country can achieve green energy goals. Human rights, no matter where you live and no matter what zip code you live in and what country you live in, matter in this body. And with that, members, I respectfully ask for a yes vote.
Further discussion to the A13 amendment. Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge members to support the amendment.
Any further discussion to the A13 amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Scott moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A6.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this amendment would remove a section of the bill, Section 4, I lost my page number here, but this addresses some language in the bill that I found really troublesome. And it basically in the middle of the bill, or the middle of that paragraph, it says that before decisions are made, basically the state of Minnesota has to take into account all aspects of state agency activities, including but not limited to planning, awarding grants, purchasing, regulating, funding, and permitting when decisions are made in these agencies regarding the effects on climate change. And my concern there, folks and members, is that they may not allow permitting for things like a feedlot, for a pipeline that's needed, for a manufacturing facility that needs an air permit from the state. And so my concerns here are great. I think that this, to say that this consideration has to be made in all aspects of state agencies' activities, I think is overkill. And I would encourage members to vote to remove this section, and I would ask for a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion to the A6 amendment. Representative Acom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I will say that I encourage people to vote against the amendment. The section of the bill that this is referring to is looking for a report that would be put together on behalf of the climate subcabinet that will look at state agency activities and actions, we have seen since back in 2007, when we passed the Next Generation Energy Act, we've seen great strides in the electricity generation sector and in other sectors of our economy with looking at greenhouse gas emission reductions has not done nearly as well. We just got a report back from MPCA in January, and it shows, in fact, that in most sectors of our economy, with the exception of electricity, the emissions are going up. And so what this provision of the bill is doing is asking for a report to be drafted to show how we can improve those greenhouse gas emission reductions. And so it's not changing any state agency permitting authority. It's not changing their actions. All it's doing is drafting a report showing where we can do better. So it will take it'll make no change in permitting authority. So I encourage members to vote against the amendment.
Any further discussion to the A6 amendment? Yes, Representative Szwecinski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. You know, while this amendment and Representative Aiken says it's just potentially a report, we heard over and over and over in committee on the gains we've made in energy efficiency and the decrease of CO2 emissions with our energy sector. And we heard over and over that it's agriculture and transportation that see rising potential issues. And so where else are we going to go? What is this report potentially going to impact? Well, it's going to impact permitting. Well, today, and maybe a week, and maybe a year from now, when this legislature has moved on, taken their private sector job, they'll read a newspaper article and says, well, because of this report that was passed in so-and-so year, the Department of Agriculture has decided not to approve an expansion of a small family farm into a medium family farm. Folks, the decisions we make when they seem subtle is like a pebble on the other side of the ocean, may become a tidal wave here. And friends, I think Representative Scott is spot on. When by removing this, we remove the potential obstacles for economic opportunity in the future. And let us not tie it, because we understand what government bureaucracy can do. When you open up the door just a little bit, where does it turn in a year or in a decade? Support the Scott Amendment.
Further discussion to the A6 amendment? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. It's not working. I told him. For those members voting remotely, please vote. The clerk will call the names of those members that haven't voted yet.
Berg.
Berg, no.
Berg, no. Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Bo.
Bo, aye.
Bo, aye. Carlson.
Carlson, no.
Carlson, no. Haley. Haley, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Hollins. Hollins. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Listlegard.
Listlegard, no.
Listlegard, no. Mason. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Noor.
No, no.
Noor, no. Richardson.
Richardson, no.
Richardson, no. Sandell.
Sandell, no.
Sandell, no. Tice. Tice, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 69 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gruenhagen moves to amend Senate File number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A7.
I recognize the author of the amendment. Representative Gruenhagen, would you please explain the amendment?
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Yeah, what this amendment says is that on the community solar gardens, 75% of the community solar gardens should be owned by individuals and companies in Minnesota. You say, why do I say that, members? Well, according to XL Energy information that was shared in the committee, only 13% of community solar gardens are owned by people or companies in Minnesota, okay? 67% of the community solar gardens in Minnesota are owned by out-of-state individuals and companies, okay? Now, two that were named in committee was Warren Buffett, who's known not to always want to make a lot of money on something. Just kidding, members. And also a utility out of Florida. So you have to ask yourself, why would Warren Buffett and other individuals and a utility out of Florida decide to own community solar gardens in Minnesota? Well, members, you'll find that out in the next amendment. It's because we're artificially inflating the cost of solar garden electricity. And these individuals out of state are gaining huge profits off Minnesota ratepayers paying higher rates, which I'll explain in the next amendment. The other interesting thing why this amendment is necessary, members, 20% of the community solar gardens in Minnesota are owned by international and foreign individuals. Think about that. International companies, some in Canada and other places, and individuals that don't live in this country are making huge profits off Minnesota ratepayers paying inflated prices here in Minnesota. Now, I think most of you in the metro area are serviced by XL Energy. So your constituents and businesses are paying artificially inflated prices on electricity, 87% of which goes to out-of-state individuals and companies, and 20% goes to foreigners or international companies. Think about that, members. That's what's happening. It's a scam, okay? So we want to change that. We want at least, my preference would be 100% owned by individuals and companies in Minnesota. But I'll compromise, okay? I moved it to 75%. So members, if you care about your businesses and their cost of electricity, and you care about your constituents, those especially on fixed incomes and lower income people, and we know electricity is a necessity, and when our businesses, grocery stores, clothing stores all pay higher electricity price, guess where it shows up? In the cost of goods and services. So you're hurting the very poorest people in Minnesota through this current ownership to profit out of state and foreign investors. Members, that is ridiculous, okay? So members, I would ask for a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Gruenhagen.
Okay, so I hope that Chair Long, who I respect, would accept this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion to the A7 amendment. The representative from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, Representative Gruenhagen, I'm going to have to disappoint you today. I'm not going to accept the amendment. The amendment, I believe, is unconstitutional and that it would require, put limits on ownership for only Minnesota folks, and that violates the Dormant Commerce Clause. But aside from that, I think we have in this state quite a lot of investments in local small businesses that come from out of state. We finance from banks that are out of state. We finance from banks around the world. But 100% of these projects are built in Minnesota with Minnesota workers, and 100% of these projects benefit local Minnesotans, including over 10,000 residential subscribers who are saving on their electric bills right now. So I'd urge members to oppose the amendment.
Further discussion to the A7 amendment. The representative from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering if Representative Long would yield to a question.
Representative Long, yes, he will yield to a question. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering, Representative Long, can you fill in the blanks for me? Can you tell myself and the body how much it costs for the community solar compared to utility scale solar? So there's a rate set by the PUC. Can you let us know what that rate is and how that compares to what utility scale solar currently costs?
Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the question, Representative O'Neill. So the rate for community solar is set by the value of solar rate, which looks at what the rate is that would hold it equal for all ratepayers so that there's no cross subsidy. So that looks, for example, at the value of having distribution locally. It looks at the avoided cost of not having to build transmission. And you asked for the comparison to the utility scale, but that's not the right comparison. The right comparison is to putting solar on your rooftop, which is what you could do to get the same benefit of the value of solar and have it net metered. And it's about half the cost if you look at comparing it to putting it on your own roof.
Representative O'Neill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Long, I appreciate your non-answer. And I know why you're giving me a non-answer, because you don't want the answer on the public record of what the actual rates are. And if you talk to Excel Energy, the community solar gardens is the most expensive energy that they purchase, and they're forced to purchase it by rule of law. They can't refuse a community solar project. And you can correct me if I am wrong in the number that I recall, but I believe it's between $140 to $150 per megawatt hour. And utility scale solar is about 5 cents, so about $50 a megawatt. So 3 times as expensive as utility scale solar. And I would point out that community solar gardens are on the ground. I've not seen one that's on a rooftop, so I don't think that's an accurate comparison. But members, this is a good amendment. I don't think we need to be furthering Warren Buffett and foreign investors, helping them get richer. And there's a reason why they're investing in Minnesota, and that is because it's incredibly profitable. It's 3 times the rate that Excel pays for utility scale solar. If you want solar, let's do it more effectively, efficiently, and cost affordably. That is what this attempts to do. And I appreciate Representative Gruenhagen for pointing that out. And members, I would ask for your support for Representative Gruenhagen's amendment, despite what Representative Long has already said. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to stand to support the Gruenhagen amendment. I miss sitting on the Energy Committee, and Chair Long, it's good to see you fighting the same fight with solar communities, and you knew I was going to say something about this because, again, reflecting a lot about what Representative Gruenhagen has said, along with Representative O'Neill, it is the most expensive power on the Xcel Energy grid. And for the newest members that are here, understand that the original authors of this idea had it spot on with coming up with the beautiful name of community solar gardens. I mean, I just feel good saying it. And it is something that is getting out of hand in Minnesota. Not because I don't like solar. I'm a big solar supporter because solar has gotten cheap. It is at the right place and at the right scale, it can really be a big part of our grid. But members, years ago, when the technology wasn't as good and they were developing the formula of how we pay solar on the grid, with what Chair Long said about the value of solar, it is a bad formula that the PUC is using. That is where the nugget is that is so wrong. And what we have to address at some point, and I know the majority will rule this and they're going to vote it down, but we have to pay attention to this, members, in the future, because what Representative Gruenhagen is really trying to do is say, look, okay, we're not going to stop it right now, but why not let Minnesotans make a bunch of money than folks out of state so we get taxes from them? Let's at least recycle it within the state of Minnesota. And as a business guy, you know, I want to support local businesses, and let's get Minnesotans rich on this. So what's wrong with this idea of still supporting community gardens? But I think there should be something that we should consider about keeping it within our family in the state of Minnesota. So again, this is, solar community gardens need some regulation to not let it throttle out of control and no guardrails for future expansions. Because the faster this moves forward, once it's there, members. We've got to find a way to kind of put some limits on this each year. But again, I really do support the Gruenhagen amendment, and I really hope members think about this, because if you're an Xcel Energy customer, if you have residents in your district, if that's what you represent, their rates are higher, and they'll continue to go higher because community solar gardens are expanding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to the A7 amendment. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Long, I heard your comment when you spoke earlier about not being willing to accept this amendment. And I just wanted to remind members, I know what you meant, and I know you didn't mean any ill will by that, but there isn't a scenario allowed in our rules where one member gets to accept an amendment. And every member of this chamber has a right to offer an amendment, and I'm sure every member of this chamber would appreciate the public knowing that they have a right to decide for themselves whether they want to take it or not. So, and I know you didn't mean it that way, but it is something that we need to be careful about how we say. Every member does have a right to just review the amendment, decide for themselves, listen to the debate, and make a decision whether they want to vote for it or not. So we should all just, as a reminder, be careful of the words that we use. One member doesn't speak for an entire party, and I'm sure your members would appreciate their constituents knowing that they get to choose how to vote on an amendment.
Further discussion to the A7 amendment. To the author of the amendment, Representative Gruenhagen.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks for the discussion. I'm disappointed, to say the least, Chair Long, but I wish you would reconsider. You know, the point's been made, and my next amendment will address this further. This is expensive energy, and there's a lot of profit in it, okay? And according to my staff, they never said anything about a legal problem with this amendment, that where there's tax subsidized state and even federal money, we can limit ownership, okay? That shouldn't be a problem. The other thing, members, please think it through. Your constituents and businesses are paying artificially inflated rates, and the majority of the profit on that money is going out of state, 67%, according to Excel, and 20% is going to foreigners to enrich them at higher rates for your constituents and businesses. The least we can do if we're going to artificially inflate these rates and charge higher prices is, as Representative Baker said, is let people in Minnesota participate, okay? Only 13% goes to Minnesota companies and individuals, according to Excel Energy. So when you see your members out there who are in energy poverty, some of them, they got a hard time paying their electric bill or their gas bill or whatever, if you vote against this amendment, you're contributing to that situation for them because you're inflating their cost to a point when they're on fixed incomes that they can't pay their necessities. So think about that, members, and please vote green.
Seeing no further discussion to the A7 amendment, the clerk will take the roll. For those members voting remotely, please vote. The clerk will call the names of those members who haven't voted yet.
Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Carlson.
Carlson, no.
Carlson, no. Daniels.
Daniels votes aye.
Daniels, aye. Haley. Haley, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Mariani. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin. Mecklin.
aye.
Mecklin, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Tice. Tice, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. Zhang Jie.
Sean J, no.
Zhang Jie, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 71 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gruenhagen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A41.
I recognize the author of the amendment. Representative Gruenhagen, will you please explain the amendment?
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Yeah, what this amendment does, it allows the real price of solar garden electricity to be charged rather than the artificially inflated price. Now, according to Excel Energy, the actual market price of community solar gardens is 4 cents a kilowatt hour, okay? I want you to think about that, members. The artificially inflated price set by the PUC and the Commerce Department, according to XL Energy, is between about 11 cents a kilowatt hour. So government in Minnesota artificially inflates the price of the electricity of the solar gardens to profit people who aren't even in Minnesota and are foreigners. Think about that. The least we can do is allow the market price. Now, some people have told me that solar may drop down to 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. But if we've got these Commerce and the PUC artificially inflating it, how does that ever pass on to our businesses and our citizens, members? Think about that. Care about your constituents and businesses, which I know you do. But some of these people are in poverty, energy poverty. They can't make their gas and their electric bill, especially in winter or in summer. So members, what this amendment does, it allows the market and the benefit of advanced technology to pass on to the actual ratepayers. Now, just to illustrate that, again, this information comes from XL Energy. The inflated price that Commerce and the PUC set, Minnesota, we're doing it to ourselves, 10% of that inflated price goes to, as a credit or subsidy, to community solar garden subscribers. So of the inflated price, which is worth millions, 10% of it goes back to community solar garden subscribers. Commercial and industrial are 62%. Government, schools, and churches are 25% of that 10%, and residential gets about 13%. Now, we were told the reason there was very little residential is because community solar garden owners want the bill paid. They don't want to mess around with the residential. That's why so much of it goes to commercial, industrial, and government. Okay, so then you have 90% of the artificially inflated price. You know where that goes, members? It goes to the community solar owners, garden owners. And as I said in the previous amendment, 67% of that money goes out of the state of Minnesota. 20% goes to foreigners outside of our country. And only 13%, according to XL Energy, actually stays in the state of Minnesota. Think about that. Your constituents, your businesses, your churches, right on down the line, are paying artificially inflated rates for community solar garden electricity, and the majority of the profit is going outside of our state of Minnesota to enrich companies and billionaires in some cases. I think that's a travesty. I want to say one other thing, members. How many of you remember Enron? Enron in the 90s was artificially, they didn't produce a lot of electricity. They were out of Texas, remember? But they were artificially inflating the price of electricity and making millions, okay? What happened to the CEOs of Enron in the private sector? They went to jail, members. In other words, if the PUC and the Commerce Department were doing what they're doing in the state of Minnesota in the private sector, they would be arrested and thrown in jail. That's what we got going on. We got our PUC and Commerce Department looking at Enron and say, by God, we can do that, and we can get away with it because we work for the government. That's what's wrong with socialism. Members, at least if you're going to promote this unreliable energy, non-baseload, the least you can do is allow your constituents and businesses to receive the market price and not the artificially inflated price. So, Chair Long, I hope you will see this as a friendly amendment.
Further discussion. The representative from Candy Ojai, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Gruenhagen, for bringing this bill forward. For people that don't understand, out by me, we have lots of farmland, and I used to always say we grew corn, soybeans, and sugar beets. We grow a couple other things, but those are the three main commodities. Only now we also grow community solar gardens. I don't know about the rest of the state. I can only imagine that if these community solar gardens are growing in your area anywhere near the rate at which they're being grown in my district, it's unfathomable. And for people that don't understand, these are right now, I think there might be a portion in this bill later on that wants to increase it to 3 megawatts, but right now they're restricted to 1 megawatt, about 10 acres. Just always think this is about 10 acres. It adjusts a little bit down in certain cases, but most of these community solar gardens are 10 acres. They're being built on tillable ground all over the place. And so whether this is a good idea or not can be debated, but I want people to understand the dynamics. Now, this is not officially a Ponzi scheme that seems to have a good, connotation to it that I want people to take, but this is definitely a scheme of some sort. And what happens is when Representative Gruenhagen is talking about showing the true market rate and why we aren't doing that, it's because there's lots of shifting of dollars to make this palatable for everyone. So I just want to point out the dynamics that are at play with these community solar gardens. So you have certain role players. You have the landowners, you have the subscribers, you have the solar companies, and you have the ratepayers. And then Excel. Those are the ones that are in play here. Now the landowners. A true statement is made when they say landowners are very agreeable to providing land to build these community solar gardens. Members, I've heard numbers told me before, but I would tell you a document that I actually saw a couple weeks ago, a proposal given to a landowner. And for 10 acres of land, he was going to be given, for a 35-year contract for these solar gardens, 10 acres of land, $250,000 cash up front. Now, if you break that math down, it was always easier for me when it was a 25-year contract, at least because that was $1,000. Is that $1,000? Anyway, it's a lot. Glasses are steaming up. So understand that same land, if it is rented for corn or beans, and Representative Swedzinski, kind of nod or shake your head without my glasses, but it's about $250 an acre. For sugar beets, it'll be about $350 an acre for rent. I can tell you that getting $1,000 to $1,500 a year per acre rent on, or essentially rent on that, why wouldn't they do that? I don't blame the landowners. So now we have the subscribers, and the breakdown was mentioned by Representative Gruenhagen as to the amount that each people get. I know farmers that have said, I had someone come to my door a couple months ago and said, hey, how would you like to have cheaper energy with Excel? I can sign you up right here. That's how they do it. And you do. You get, if you're a homeowner, you get a couple percentage off. I think farmers on their homesteads are getting a couple percentages off. But someone that works in government affairs for Excel told me that businesses are getting upwards of 50% off of their electric bills and when they buy into community solar gardens. Well, why wouldn't they take that? Of course I would expect them to take that. Then you have Excel Energy, which is able to forward all of these costs directly to the ratepayer through either a rate rider or just the cost of their electricity, which I think you're seeing both of those. So the other player is the ratepayer, and they're getting all of this on. They're the ones that are paying for this. Members, I have Excel at my house. In the last 3 or 4 years, I have put LED light bulbs in my entire house. I have an efficient furnace. I have a brand new air conditioner I put in last summer. All my energy consumption has gone down, down, down. And in the last 5 years, my monthly bill has about doubled. Now, how can that be? If it keeps going down, 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 but my bill has doubled, it's because these rates and they're primarily because there's some other factors, but it is primarily because of these community solar gardens that continue to go up my area, because someone has to pay the bill. It's already been stated how expensive it is to do these. And when you look at the landowners, what they're getting, what the subscribers are getting in discounts, what the solar companies are making, what Excel is making off of this, that's why it's so expensive. These are all the players, and this is problematic. But I want to share one final thing. There's one more group that I didn't bring up in all that dynamic that is certainly part of this, and this is unmeasured by dollars. And that's community members to these solar gardens. Members, there was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, there was a landowner. They bought their parents' house, and they wanted to have an acreage. I think they came from the cities, but they wanted to have an acreage to literally watch the sun set. That's where they positioned their house, and they remodeled it. Move a year forward, and one of their adjacent neighbors had given land, had signed an agreement with one of these community solar gardens to go up. And this now, instead of watching the sunset, they are literally watching this community solar garden out their window. They had a problem with this, and they went to the county and said this has to be stopped. By the way, these two neighbors have been generational friends, and they went to the county and said this has to be stopped. And make the long story short, they legally can't. The solar company said, we will sue the company sue the county if you don't allow us to put this in place. And so that went up. That's a cost to rural communities also, because now we have people that were generational friends that are no longer talking to each other. This dynamic is silly, it's expensive, it pushes an agenda that is not good for the energy source of the state of Minnesota. You want to do solar, fine. Representative Gruenhagen is right. When the community solar gardens were first passed, I thought they were a little bit not my thing, okay? But they were meant for a community to come together. In Wilmer, they did this. They came together and they said, they did like a pilot project. I don't know where it expanded to, but they said, you know what? We think solar is important enough in our little circle of region here. We're going to put up X number of solar panels, and we're going to use this community solar garden model to do that. Because as was stated, it doesn't always make sense to put it on everyone's roof. You can join together. It's not such a bad thing. Again, not my thing, but not such a bad thing. What this has been bastardized into is just incredible. And now we want to expand it, I understand, to more megawatts, so bigger. And then I know that I haven't seen it this year, but then there's also been efforts to make it to where subscribers outside. Right now, members, you can only have it in a county or an adjacent county, the subscriber has to be. And they've wanted to expand that to other counties, which is just insane, because now these solar panels that are going up in Chippewa County are going to give businesses in Hennepin County a 50% discount on their electricity. Can you imagine what that'll do to my region? And again, I don't fault the landowners for taking this it's just 10 acres of their land. They usually tuck it into a corner with stuff to plant anyway. But this dynamic is not helpful. It does not push a sensible agenda forward. So I ask that you support not only this amendment, I wanted to get it all out under one amendment. I know there's a couple others, but I ask you to support this amendment and anything that restrains and puts some control back on these community solar gardens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to the A41 amendment. The representative from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Gruenhagen, for the amendment. While I may not view the amendment as friendly, I certainly view the member as friendly, and I appreciate our engagement on this. So, Representative Gruenhagen, you're really comparing apples to oranges again when you're talking about utility scale versus distributed, and they're not the same thing. When you're talking about distributed energy, then there are a lot of benefits that aren't available with utility scale solar, and that's what the value of solar takes into account. So those benefits benefit everybody, whether you're a subscriber or not, and that's reduced transmission and distribution costs, that's an increased resiliency of the grid, that's eliminated pollution that we take into account in the value of solar. So all of these things are actually taken into account in the price. And if you are an individual who's looking to become a community solar subscriber, then what's your alternative? Well, your alternative is to put it on your roof. You can't go out and build a utility scale solar garden. So this is not a wholesale program. This is a retail program. And if you're putting community solar on your roof, that's at 23 cents. So if you're doing the comparison that I represented to Representative O'Neill, we're looking at half the price for doing the community solar. So I'd urge members to oppose this amendment. Community solar, as Representative Miller mentioned, is benefiting farmers all across our region. farmers, usually we aren't complaining when they're getting diversified income and the ability to have a better income for their farms, and we know a lot of more farmers want this. So I would encourage members to vote no. Thank you.
The representative from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker and members. Hope you can hear me. Not to belabor the point too long, but another aspect that I was thinking about as Representative Miller was talking about the proliferation of these gardens all over the state. Yeah, they're really coming up along I-94 especially. And I was talking to some of the folks up in Stearns County talking about the assessment and valuations of these community solar gardens. And I don't know if I remember the exact number of gardens in Stearns County, but there were about 40 as I recall, and about 50 or 60 more in the drawing stages or the planning stages. So there are a lot more on the way, as others have said as well. But one aspect that they're looking at is that if a solar garden is under that 1 megawatt of nameplate capacity, they do not have to pay any production tax, and the land that they're located on it remains taxed at the same level that it was before, whether it's farmland or wasteland or whatever. And if it's over 1 megawatt, then it goes up to a commercial classification of property, and of course the tax rate becomes higher then as well. So what's happening, I think, in some instances is that developers are putting these smaller nameplate capacity gardens on the same parcel of land and then maintaining that agricultural value of the property, but yet in total encompassing going over that 1 megawatt nameplate capacity. So that's another area, I think, where we have to look at how we assess and tax these community solar gardens. But I would agree with those that have spoken so far, saying that it's a program that's kind of on steroids and in some ways out of control in the terms of the number of new gardens being planned across the state. And because of the increased costs, it's kind of a head scratcher in terms of why we have so many at an increased cost. And in effect, at the end, the ratepayers are the ones that are actually paying the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to the A41 amendment. Representative Suzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just a little bit of an extra note. And, you know, we'll probably hear later on today on how community solar is replacing coal or natural gas production. That's not the case. It's not the case. You know, just to kind of draw a little picture story for folks, you know, let's say your company X going to the PUC, and you're proposing 500 megawatts of solar across the state. PUC looks at that proposal, and they estimate how much community solar may come online in the next year. Estimate. Why? Because they don't necessarily have to go to the PUC to ask for permission. It's built and put on and accepted, unlike all other energy sources in the state. And they reduce the approval process for Excel. They say, well, if there's going to be 125 megawatts of community solar put on, then your Excel Energy is going to build 125 less of industrial solar. And so I appreciate the Gruenhagen amendment because I think it really truly does. There's an inflection point, and we have an amendment for that coming, where the cost of community solar is going to be higher than a subscriber's cost savings. And I believe that moment's coming in 3 or 4 years, but I would recommend to members to support the Gruenhagen amendment.
Further discussion. To the author of the amendment, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks for the discussion, members. You know, I just want to parrot Representative Miller's comments also. I don't blame the landowner or the farmer for taking this. In fact, I was at a township meeting about a month ago, and I explained some of this stuff to the township board, and in the audience was a farmer who who came up to me afterwards, and he said, I'm thinking of signing a contract to put solar on my farm. And he said, you know what they offered me? $1,800 an acre, okay? Do you realize how much money is in this? When we have a government, the state government, artificially inflating the price to our consumer or our ratepayers. Think about that. And you know what else? A lot of those ratepayers are experiencing energy poverty, and a lot of them are minorities and minority businesses. In fact, one person said to me, this is energy racism, this artificially inflated cost, which is rooted in socialism, which is another reason why socialism bankrupts states and countries. Members, the other thing I just say, you can believe Chair Long, or you can believe the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, the Minnesota Forest Industries, the Iron Mining Association, the Central Minnesota Manufacturers Association, the Arrowhead Manufacturers, and the Metal Casters of Minnesota. Here's what they have to say, members. Minnesota has already been negatively impacted by this type of market distortion, even what is now 25% of the renewable energy standard. Historically, electricity in Minnesota has been consistently cheaper than the national average by about 18 to 20%. However, following enactment of the renewable energy standard, only 1/4 of the expanded intervention and preferential treatment included in HF 22110, that competitive edge has been lost. In 2017, the first year ever that electricity in Minnesota was more expensive than the national average. All told, Minnesota are now paying over $1 billion a year more for electricity per year than if the state had maintained its historic price advantage. There you go, members. That's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the people who provide jobs in this state, okay? That's what you're doing to them. Do you think they can offer more benefits to their employees and higher wages when they have to pay it into higher electricity costs? If you've never owned a business, that's how it works, okay? When you have higher overhead costs, you got less to give to your employees. And that's what we're doing. Okay, one more comment. This impact from all Minnesota families, it hurts the competitiveness of Minnesota businesses, but it's the least fortunate among us that will be hit the hardest. More than 390,000 households in Minnesota already experience the ravages of energy poverty. In other words, they can't pay their bills, with many more forced to keep their homes at unhealthy temperatures or forgo basic necessities such as medicine or food to pay their energy bills. Nationwide, the lowest income households devote more than 20% of their after-tax income on residential utilities and motor fuel. With COVID-19 already exacerbating energy poverty in the U.S., now is certainly not the time to add more arbitrary government costs to the burden. Members, that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of Minnesota companies. That's what we're doing to them. So you can believe Chair Long, or you can believe these Minnesota employers who actually hire people. You're devastating the poor. That's what you're doing. You're trapping them in energy poverty. And besides that, members, when we artificially inflate the cost by over three times, we're doing something, the state of Minnesota is doing something that if they did it in the private sector, they'd be arrested. So if you don't vote for this amendment, you know what? You're supporting illegal behavior by government that if they did it in the private sector, they'd be arrested. Think about that. Think about your constituents. Think about your businesses. Think about what they're doing here in the state of Minnesota, and at least let them have market rate on their prices of 4 cents or less. Please care about those people you represent more than enriching the few at the expense of the many. This is nothing but a transfer of wealth by government. Members, please vote green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Okay, I have two more members that have that felt inspired to speak to the amendment. First is Representative Backer and then Representative Mecklen. Representative Backer to the A41 amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I stand to support this. One of the things we've not talked about is really the long-term environmental impact out in greater Minnesota. One thing that no one's looking at is also the cost of once these solar panels, because that's really what it is. I don't like the word solar garden because it's not growing anything, in my opinion. So we have an acre of solar panels. That's what they should be called. That's distorting the view, like we heard earlier. But once they become extinct from usage, they expand their life. These are some of the most toxic things that are out there. And the prior amendment, one of the concerns that I have heard in my neck of the woods on West Central Minnesota, because we're going to be the ones that stuck with these areas that are with these solar panels, that once out of their use, what do we do with it? To me, it seems like a asbestos situation just repeated, but out in the open. These companies that are not from Minnesota will just say, go bankrupt, or say, hey, forget you, Minnesota, that's your headache. So no one has been talking about that. And granted, it's nice to have energy. We can get clean energy with coal. It's nice to have solar energy, but at the end of the day, we got to look at the full cost. And when we increase rates so much, yesterday we had a bill that killed jobs that was passed out of the House floor. Now we have a bill here that will kill more jobs. So, but no one's looking at the environmental cost once these solar acres and acres of solar panels, that's what they should be called. What are they going to do afterwards? So I'm going to be supporting this amendment and would ask other members to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
The representative from Sherburne, Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm looking for a little clarification based on this entire wonderful debate, and I apologize. I had my hand up before Representative Gruenhagen gave his final comments, but this challenging time we're in. So if Representative Long will yield for a question.
Representative Long, will you yield for a question? He will yield for a question. Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So Representative Long, I want to clarify. I think I just heard you say, and I want to make sure that for the rooftop solar, it's at 23 cents. Am I correct in what I heard?
Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the question, Representative Mecklen. That's my understanding of the price for putting solar on your own roof, yes.
Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So Representative Long will yield for another question.
He will yield. Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So Representative Long, are you aware, or do you know off the top of your head the current retail rate versus the current wholesale rate between what these utility companies must buy, aside from rooftop? Now we're going to go back to community solar. What they're paying for each kilowatt hour in community solar versus what the power companies must pay for utility solar per kilowatt hour.
Representative Long.
I think, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question, Representative Mecklen. I think we've been over this. The numbers were correctly stated by Representative Gruenhagen. It's 11 cents for the value of solar rate for community solar, 4 cents for utility solar is what's in this amendment, although that would be a pretty darn good rate for a utility solar. But that's apples to oranges, as I mentioned, and 11 cents to 23 cents is the correct comparison.
Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So if Representative Long will yield to another question.
He will yield. Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So Representative Long, so if a power company is buying, it's currently actually 12.37 cents is what I've just been informed, but, or give or take, maybe a week or two ago. But they have to buy it at 12.37 cents per kilowatt. They have to then sell it at 12.37 cents per kilowatt. So As a business, they're making nothing. I'm trying to figure out, how do we increase benefits to the employee? How do we increase their wages? How do we even pay our employees if we're buying for 12.37 cents and selling for 12.37 cents? And if we're going to do it that way, where does the money come from to actually create the benefit package for the employee? Mr. Speaker.
Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a little bit of trouble hearing the question, but I'll do my best to answer it, and then if I got it wrong, I'm sure I'll get a follow-up. But the value of solar rate is set by looking at the total value of the solar to society. So that includes things like not having to build new transmission or distribution, as I mentioned, having environmental benefits from solar, having enhanced reliability. But if we're talking about whether or not, the value to employees, I'm not entirely sure where that question is going, or I didn't quite follow.
Representative Mecklin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize, my internet, I know is a little bit weak. But that said, so if a company buys something for $1 and sells it for $1, they literally have no way to pay their employee, nor themselves. So if we're forcing a company to buy something produced within community solar at 12.37 cents per kilowatt, and then that's all they can sell it for at the same time, net metering, how do they make any money to go forward? So because they don't make money there, they have to shift it somewhere else. This is cost shifting to the ratepayer. And I just trying to establish if you agree with me on this, because you can't buy, if you run a business, you can't buy for $1 and sell for $1 and have anything left at the end to not only cover your own costs as well as your staff and everything else. But am I correct in what I'm understanding from you at this point, Representative Long? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The representative from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And I was hoping somebody would explain the part of the justification. Well, you don't need the distribution, you don't need the upkeep on, the transmission and et cetera. We've got a grid, and the maintenance of that grid is overhead, and that's part of the utility bill. Whether you have solar or DG or industrial wind, it's attached to the grid. And to justify 3 times the charge in rate because you're making up for not having the grid, that's just plain not honest. The other part is solar in any non-baseline power needs a grid. If you watch the distribution, when solar and wind goes down, they crank up hydro and other sources. And you can only do that because you have a grid. So the idea to pay extra for local solar gardens because you're saving, no. You're just adding profit to one part, and you're ignoring that the overhead is still there whether you have the solar garden or not. So frankly, I'd love the amendment to be adopted, because you should pay directly to what it costs, and then it's truly low cost or high cost power, and that's being honest to the people. So I support a green vote on this.
The representative from Hennepin, Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Speaker. As I've been listening to this debate, I wanted to just, in support of the Gruenhagen amendment, make a point about why some of these rates were set the way they were in the beginning. Obviously, solar panels cost a lot more money than they do today. And there certainly was a rate return set by the PUC, I believe, to encourage the type of production and or development of this type of a system as alternative source of energy. I had a similar situation personally that occurred to me with regard to wind. It was the same type of lucrative arrangement. I own a few hundred acres out in Otter Tail County, and it is adjacent to or part of a designated or zoned wind farm area. Otter Tail County has a large zoned area for wind farm. I remember getting the notice about this, and that what piqued my curiosity about it about 14 or 15 years ago. And I had adequate room to put about 6 or 7 of these wind turbines on my property out in Otter Tail. And I looked into it, and at that time, the rate of return, and it was certainly would spur investment to do it. It looked like one of the wind turbines could be amortized over about a 7.5 or 8 year period. And that seemed to be a pretty lucrative situation in terms of having a continual stream of income for the long term. However, at the time that I was considering that, there was also discussion about changing regulations and whether or not you had to be able, or were going to be able to, in perpetuity, be able to sell that power to the utility companies. In the end, I decided to not risk a couple $1 million of investment in wind turbines for the short term. And I don't regret having made that decision. In fact, out in that particular area of Otter Tail County, I haven't seen a single one that was erected. But my point is that now that solar panels have been manufactured at a greatly reduced cost, that there is economies of scale, it is certainly within reason to lower the rate of return on these things in proportion to the lower cost and the lower investment that's been going in there. But there's been such a clamor to build these things, as you've heard Representative Gruenhagen mention about farmers getting paid a certain amount of money. You know, another option I had was to be paid $50,000 for a location for a 20-year lease, and somebody else would put it up. But then again, I mean, do you want these things on your property? That ultimately was a question that I had to answer, and I decided against it. But it is time to lower the rate, and I would urge you to support the Gruenhagen amendment, which would lower the rate that our providers of electricity have to pay, and who is actually paying for it, and that is the rate user or the consumer. So to that end, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Gruenhagen, for your passionate words on this issue.
Back to the author of the amendment, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I would ask for a roll call on this, please.
Roll call having been requested, seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Any further discussion to the yes, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, since other people spoke after I gave my closing comments, can I redo that again? Just kidding. I didn't want to be called out of order. But just 2 more things. One, you know, Representative Stephenson is concerned about price gouging. Well, Representative Stephenson, why don't you point the Attorney General to the Commerce Department of the PUC? They're doing a lot of price gouging up there, okay? Secondly, you know, I'm really getting sick of the name Warren Buffett. Between opposing our pipelines and putting oil on railroads through our communities and endangering those communities and schools, and with derailment and fires and explosion, when it could be transferred safely through pipelines, I'm beginning to think he should be put on probation, to tell you the truth. But anyway, and finally, members, without any more comments, just think about your low-income people and your businesses. A vote against this amendment is a vote against them and encouraging energy poverty on them. Please vote green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Members voting remotely, please vote. The clerk will call the names of those members that haven't voted yet.
That's the best ever. Wow. By far. 10, that's up and down? That's the best. Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Damath. Damath. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleveland, no.
Cleavorn, no. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Thompson. Thompson. Clerk will close the roll.
There being 62 ayes and 69 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. And members, I just want to inform you that we broke a record today with the most members voting for the first time, with only 10 members not voting remotely, so let's keep it up. We can do better. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Slazinski moves to amend Senate File number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A49.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Slazinski, who will explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. I just want to ask a question to the body. How many of you use Saran wrap in your home? You know, it's that product you put over the bowl so that you can see what's inside. Well, I think we got a pretty good amount of folks. And why do people like Saran wrap? Because it's transparent. You can see what's in the bowl. Sometimes it goes bad, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's been there too long. Right? Well, this amendment, the A49, is a transparency bill because people like transparency. And we're told over and over as a prescriber to community solar gardens, it's on their bill of how much money, if you're a prescriber, how much money you've saved by having prescribed to solar gardens. But one thing that's not is the cost of the subscription, the cost of the actual program. Representative Gruenhagen did a wonderful job in really talking about why the cost is important when it comes to this program. It's considerably 3 times what industrial solar is. It's displacing industrial solar. It's doing other things. And I think, you know, we owe it to ratepayers. We owe it to the people we represent, to the businesses. This is not saying, I got you. This is just saying, let's just have some transparency in the process. Let's understand. We've heard from some experts that the fuel cost, because currently on a bill that you would get from Xcel Energy, that there's a fuel surcharge. So the cost of the fuel, and that's put on your bill, it's calculated out, that the portion attributed to solar gardens and its set rate above market value is rising. So every year you get hundreds of acres of these things coming on, more and more and more. The cost is having a big impact on people's bills. And it's my belief that we are 2 or 3 or 4 years away from an inflection point. That the cost of community solar will outweigh the savings even by the prescribers. So the folks that are actually put their own dollars in to say, hey, I'm going to pay this money forward. I want to be part of that project. Vast majority of them are businesses, Walmarts, Targets, schools, and the rest. And so we all like saran wrap. We all like transparency. And I would ask for your support on the A49 amendment.
Discussion to the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge members to oppose the amendment. I don't think we should go down the path of itemizing every single thing on a bill. I'm sure there are things that I would love to put on an energy bill, like the variable costs of natural gas and the impact of those to customers, or the costs of having uneconomic coal plants still running. But I think we'd probably be better off just leaving the bill simple. So I'd ask members to oppose the amendment.
Further discussion. Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just, another point that we've I think we've got maybe one or two more community solar amendments left, or maybe we're really close. Another point to keep in mind when you're contemplating whether or not to vote for this bill is one of the very few restrictions on community solar is the contiguous counties. And Representative Miller, Representative Gruenhagen, Representative Anderson spoke to the land use and the ability to have some control over that. And the community solar in its name, what does community mean? Does community mean the next door neighbor? Does community mean your block? Does community mean what? I would argue that no one thinks that community is something that's potentially hundreds and hundreds of miles away to say it's community. And the contiguous counties rules make sure that if you're invested, if you're a business owner, that the community solar garden that you prescribe to will at least be somewhat close. It's either got to be in the county you reside in or the one next to it. And that's the reason to vote against the whole bill, but please support the A49 amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. No. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swazinski moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A9.
To the author of the amendment, the member from Lyons, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. The A9 amendment really speaks to the concern that members have. Under current law, we have certain industries, large consumers, that are exempt. And I'm concerned that this exemption, because this program is essentially getting moved into a new program, that exemption potentially will go away. And this just locks it down, gives market certainty, and gives the opportunity for large energy consumers to be protected if this bill were to move forward. And I ask for a roll call.
A roll call having been requested, seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the amendment. The member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd ask members to oppose this amendment. There's nothing in the bill that would get rid of these exemptions. The difference between the bill and the amendment being offered here is it takes the exemptions from having to be renewed every 5 years to making them last in perpetuity. And I think that they should be having these things being reviewed and seeing how things are going is not a bad thing. So I'd ask members to vote no.
Further discussion to the amendment. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Yep. Members voting remotely, please vote. The clerk will call the names of all those who have not yet voted.
Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Carlson. Carlson, no. Davney.
Daphne, no.
Davney, no. Damath. Damath. Frazier. Frazier. Haley. Haley. Hamilton. Hamilton.
aye. Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hassan. Hassan. Hausman.
Houseman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Keel. Keel, aye. Cleavorn. Cleavorn. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Richardson.
Richardson, no.
Richardson, no. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no.
The clerk will close the roll.
Frazier, no. Cleavorn, no. They sneak in like that.
There being 61 ayes and 68 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gruenhagen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A2.
To the author of the amendment, the member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker, and members. Yeah, what this amendment does, it reinstates large urban municipal waste incinerators, okay, where you incinerate the waste rather than just pile it up in a pile. And we're going to have a crisis of landfill space in the next 7 to 8 years. That comes from my county commissioners and from my township people. We're not going to know what to do with it all because we're not incinerating it. Now, Representative Lee in committee had a problem with that because he said there's one located in a high-density population area in the metro area. And I said I agree with them. They should be permitted outstate and away from high-density population areas, okay? But we could dramatically reduce the amount of waste in our landfills if we used incineration. Yeah, but that creates CO2, you say. Well, members, I'm going to share a testimony that we had, part of it at least, in the Energy Committee, okay? And it was from a solid waste director, so it's somebody who knows something about the industry. And I think it's interesting to hear his perspective. And his perspective comes from a U.S. greenhouse gas emissions in a study that was published, or a report that was published 1990 to 2019. So it covered about 10 years. Again, it's from the federal government. And here's what it says. The idea of that we have coined the phrase carbon-free is a misnomer. It goes on to say, the issue is is not only carbon, it is greenhouse gases. And I am concerned about some greenhouse gases, okay? But it goes on to say, carbon dioxide represents 80% of greenhouse gas emissions. Another greenhouse gas emission that comes from landfills is methane, members. Methane has an atmospheric lifetime, according to the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, of 12 years. 1 ton of methane is as destructive as 25 tons of carbon dioxide. Think about that, members. A 1 to 25 ratio. 1 ton of, that's worth repeating. 1 ton, according to the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions report, 1 ton of methane is as destructive as 25 tons of carbon dioxide. And where does a lot of carbon dioxide come from? Our landfills, members. So we could greatly reduce carbon dioxide from our landfills if we incinerated our waste rather than kept piling it on top of each other. So the problem, one of the concerns of this bill, it takes us totally in the wrong direction in terms of addressing greenhouse gases. It doesn't want to acknowledge incineration and the benefits to greenhouse gases and less carbon dioxide once you incinerate versus continuing to pile up on our landfills, which is going to be a crisis in the future and cause even more pollution problems. That's one of the main problems with this bill. We're going in reverse, members. And if you're on the freeway, you know you should be going in the direction that traffic's going. Okay, let's go in the direction that really helps with greenhouse gases. It goes on to say, the report clearly states that each ton of waste landfill is more destructive to the atmosphere than each ton of waste incinerated. Members, that comes from the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions report. Okay, so you want science, you want facts, there it is. All right? The bill will increase. So what we're doing right now, this bill will increase greenhouse gases impacts in Minnesota, and especially methane, which is the most damaging, much more damaging than CO2. It's by diverting waste into landfills. Carbon-free should not result in increased gas emissions, and that's what this bill does. We need to have a discussion about waste management, environmental impacts, separate from energy generation. Don't confuse carbon-free with greenhouse gases. Don't be pro-landfill, members. You're creating pollution in this state and nation. If we went with this amendment, we could do incinerators. You'd have less CO2, less damaging methane, which lasts 12 years and is harmful to the atmosphere. And yet this bill refuses to acknowledge that. I know Chair Long agrees, but his bill doesn't. No, just kidding. So members, there's just one, oh, I said that already. Okay, so members, what this amendment would do is it would actually help reduce pollution, reduce methane in our atmosphere, and reduce the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere here in Minnesota. The direction we're going in this bill is just the opposite. You're going to increase methane into the atmosphere, which is damaging. You're going to create more CO2 into the atmosphere, not less. So members, I would urge a green vote, and I would ask for a roll call, Madam Speaker.
A roll call having been requested, seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the A2 amendment. The member from Carver, Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Fact of the matter is, I don't think we're ready to pull that plug on waste to energy. The state of Minnesota is currently requiring metro counties to process waste as a way to reduce the amount of waste going into landfills. And the biggest part of, okay, I don't know if you could hear me before.
Representative Bowe, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Fact of the matter is, I don't think we're ready to pull the plug on waste to energy. The state of Minnesota is requiring metro counties to process waste as a way to reduce the amount of material going into landfills. And one of the biggest processing efforts is to produce waste to energy. As a matter of fact, many counties have invested significant amounts of money and effort into processing facilities that produce waste to energy. And the state of Minnesota, as I say, is requiring counties to continue to produce waste to energy. Fact of the matter is, until we reach zero waste, there is waste that needs to be managed. And waste to energy is a better option than landfilling from a standpoint of greenhouse gases. It's just, it's a struggle. And I hear from a lot of counties who are actually being penalized by the state of Minnesota for not processing waste, but yet waste to energy is the option that they have for processing. So as long as the state is going to continue to require that, we really need to make sure that this is an option that exists until we get to that point of zero waste. I think this is a good amendment. It helps us get to the point where we want to be with zero waste, and I would recommend a yes vote. Thank you.
Further discussion to the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I think we're getting very far afield from what is in this provision, which is a provision that I introduced into the bill. This has nothing to do with the waste management hierarchy or any preferences around waste management techniques. It simply says that one particular facility in Minneapolis should not be considered in state law as a form of renewable energy. It doesn't shut it down. It doesn't, it simply says that this facility should not be equated with wind and solar energy. So when Representative Gruenhagen says, well, we have to separate energy from waste, the energy generation from waste. Well, in state law, it doesn't do that. In state law, it declares this facility's energy to be renewable. This is all it does, members. It doesn't shut it down. You know, we can get into a whole conversation about landfill versus incineration. Of course, incineration has landfilling as part of it because you landfill the ash. We can talk about methane. Organics composting is a far better way of managing that piece. But members, you can't consider this renewable energy when it emits 2.5 times per kilowatt hour the amount of greenhouse gases as coal does. It's dirty energy. And finally, members, there's an important piece to this provision and that says a facility located near environmental justice areas, as this facility that we're talking about is, that is a very important consideration when we're talking about this. So the downtown Minneapolis garbage burner, right next to many communities of color, many areas that are heavily impacted by air emissions. And so, members, again, this is not a debate about the waste management hierarchy or all these preferences. This is simply saying this facility should not be considered renewable energy. It doesn't shut it down. There's no economic impacts. It's just simply a designation. The facility existed before that designation happened in 2004. It will not affect its status. So I would recommend strongly a no vote.
Further discussion to the A2. The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen, before you speak, could you please pull your mask and keep it above your nose? Thank you. Representative Gruenhagen.
Anyway, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, you know, there again, members, you have a choice. Believe Representative Chair Hornstein or believe the U.S. a U.S. report on greenhouse gas emissions. I tend to believe the U.S. Greenhouse gas emissions over Chair Hornstein. You also have the written testimony of a solid waste director who's involved in the industry. So what you have with this amendment is incineration will actually reduce CO2 emissions and especially methane emissions, which is methane is very harmful to the atmosphere. Like I said out of the report, it lasts for 12 years, okay? So we got an opportunity to have waste to electricity and help the environment, members. That's what this actually does. And that should be supported 100% by all of us, members. And at the same time, you will be helping your townships and your county commissioners with landfill space, which again, we're going to have a crisis. So this is clean energy from landfill to electricity, less pollution in the atmosphere. So members, I believe that we should vote green on this amendment. And by the way, the incinerator in Elk River was shut down. So there is a movement to shut these down, which is the opposite direction of what we should be going. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the A2 amendment. Members voting remotely, please vote. The clerk will call the names of those who have not yet voted.
Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Bo.
Oh, aye.
Bo, aye. Carlson. Carlson, no. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Davney.
Dabney, no.
Davney, no. Damath. Damath, aye. Haley. Haley, aye. Hausman.
Houseman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, no.
Cleavorn, no. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
Donald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, no.
Sandell, no. Tice. Tice, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Mecklen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A10.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Mecklen, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate that. Good correction. Members, this is a really good amendment, and there's a lot of reasons why. So we hear from people in committee all the time. We hear from the government liaisons, we hear from the lobbyists for the utility companies, we hear from all associations and organizations What we don't hear from is the people that actually make sure our lights turn on every day. And I'm not saying they're going to say for or against either side, but they want their voice heard, but they're terrified if they do, they would be subject to, some kind of ramifications if they did. And I think it's a really, really important side of this conversation that we should have all information to know every aspect of how this all works. These are the people that make sure our lights turn on every day. They make sure our grid works. These are some of the smartest engineers that we have in the state of Minnesota. I've talked to several of them from different multiple power companies, and yet they're too afraid to do it. Now, I've heard that we already have whistleblower protection in statute. I've talked to a few employment lawyers who have told me that actually, as they read through it, I don't remember all the numbers, statute numbers, but that's actually not quite in this scenario. They just want to be able to be heard on what they know, because it's not like a hostile work environment or sexual harassment or any of that kind of stuff. This is just their knowledge on what they have, and they want to make sure they can keep their job and keep their retirement. And I think this is a really good amendment, and I request your support. Thank you.
Discussion to the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Macklin, thank you for the amendment. We haven't had a bill introduced on this topic and really haven't had any conversation about this issue in committee. I certainly support whistleblower rights, but we need to, I think, have further conversation before we can take action on this, so I'd urge members to vote no.
Further discussion to the amendment. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. No. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gruenhagen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A1.
The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Yeah, with this amendment, basically it goes with the incinerators. It elevates in the bill landfill gas among renewable energies so that we could count that as a renewable energy, okay, to meet our inflated mandate that we have here in the state. So members, it's a simple amendment, and I would hope that seeing this gas, remember, a large percentage of it is methane, which is really lasting 12 years in the atmosphere and damaging our atmosphere. That's what we need to really start addressing. So, Chair Long, I would hope that you see this as a friendly amendment.
Discussion to the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Gruenhagen, I don't think there's legal significance to where landfill gas appears. I think now it's listed fourth or fifth and you move it to first. So it counts right now. It'll still count even if we don't adopt this amendment. So I'd urge members to vote no.
Further discussion to the amendment. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gruenhagen moves to amend Senate File Number 972, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A11.
The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, what this amendment does, it simply inserts that when we look at alternative energy, that a primary emphasis should be on reliability and affordability. Members, I read to you how we, from all those businesses, how we are artificially inflating the cost of electricity and the damage it's doing to our job creators who have less money to pay their employees and give benefits, okay? And you're damaging our Minnesota economy. Again, it's not my opinion. These are the job creators I read from before. I won't do that again. So I think as we look at these alternatives, okay, and we all want clean energy, all right? But I'll address that in closing remarks as far as what's clean and what's not. That we could at least put in there that we should emphasize reliability and affordability. And Chair Long, I hope you'd see this as a friendly amendment.
Discussion to the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask members to vote no. Affordability and reliability sure is important, but so is technical feasibility or the ability to have enough transmission. So those are other factors that are in there, and I don't think those should be weighted any less. So I'd ask members to vote no.
Further discussion to the A11 amendment. The representative from Lyons, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. You know, I think Representative Gruenhagen made some very good points. And I think, you know, just understanding the dynamic ability to deliver affordable energy that is on. And at sometimes the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. And if we make all our decisions on those two factors, we may put our energy sector at risk. And I think by keeping these in and voting for the Gruenhagen amendment, I think we'll be better serving our constituents and those folks that rely on energy for their daily lives. And I would like to ask for a roll call.
A roll call having been requested, seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion, the member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to comment in support of Representative Gruenhagen's amendment and his good work in working with the energy job creators, Excel and the Chamber of Commerce, who are very in tune in trying to provide and help our state have sustainable, affordable energy. I'm just curious as to why the chair, Long, would not accept any of his amendments that does just that, to make sure that our energy is sustainable and affordable for our families and businesses in Minnesota. I encourage the members to vote and support at least one of Representative Gruenhagen's. And if Representative Long would yield for a question, I'd like to ask him just that.
He will yield. Representative McDonald.
Representative Long, I have to at least say I appreciate your work on the Energy Committee. I'm not on the committee, but I'm very well that you're very assertive and attentive and very in-depth in your work in detail. But in not accepting any of Representative Gruenhagen's amendments so far that wants to that will ensure that Minnesota has sustainable and affordable energy, curious why you wouldn't accept any of those.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I explained my rationale on this amendment, which is that there are other important factors that are also listed. So, for example, if the energy is affordable and reliable, but can't be built technically, then that should be considered as well, and I think should be given equal weight. Thanks.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Representative Long. I'll accept that, I guess, at this point. Regarding the digesters, organic digesters, and the methane that Representative Gruenhagen spoke of, we have Randy Sanitation out here that's doing some great state-of-the-art work in sustaining and creating more energy through organic digesters. So I did just want to support that. I mentioned that briefly, that is a sustainable and affordable form of energy. That's all I have. Otherwise, members, I just encourage you to support Representative Gruenhagen's amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
To the author of the amendment, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Lead Swazinski, for your comments and comments of the other members. Members, let's look at the state that has gone down the Green New Deal more than anybody else, okay? And that's California. What do we see? Rolling blackouts, high cost of electricity, all right? It's undependable and expensive. Is that where you want Minnesota to go to? You know, when it's 30 below zero, according to the Star Tribune, when we had 30 below zero in 2019, only 4% of our electricity was being generated by alternatives. Think about that, members. We go 100% renewable, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have rolling blackouts across this state. It already happened in northwestern Minnesota, is my understanding. I don't want to freeze to death at 30 below zero, and I don't want to sweat to death in summer. I want reliable, clean energy. And this bill doesn't do that. The least we can do is put a phrase in there that when they're evaluating these things, they should take into consideration reliability and affordability. Members, if you live in I'm sure all of you have experience, as I had, that your electricity goes out during a storm or something, and it's no fun. Heavy rain and water's coming in on your basement and the sump pump's not working, or you know, a storm comes through and the electricity goes out in winter from the strong winds, and yet that's what we're taking our grid to. This unreliable, expensive energy. So members, the least we can do is put this phrase in there that when they're evaluating alternative energy, they should keep these two things as a priority: reliability and affordability. They already have in the bill clean energy. All we're doing is adding reliability and affordability. So members, please vote green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of all those who have not yet voted?
Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Bo.
Bo, aye.
Bo, aye. Davney.
Abney, no.
Davney, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, no.
Cleavorn, no. Kresha.
Grisha, aye.
Kresha, aye. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Murphy. Murphy. Thompson.
Murphy, no.
Murphy, no. Thompson.
No.
Thompson, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted.